Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to work mainly on the thruster area, and to do that I'll ask you to go in edit mode and then select this circle here, and then we will extrude it on the y-axis. Before that, just scale it up just a tiny bit to match the blueprint. And yeah, then we'll select it and then extrude it. Then you can scale it on the z-axis and move it down. Just that way we match the blueprint. And I'll scale this one up just a little bit and slide it to match the blueprint a bit better, and add loop cut straight in line with the end of the wing. This is very important. And now I will scale this one just a little bit down before extruding it again, and scale it and just move it down on the z-axis to match the blueprint at the bottom. And that way you can see that we already have the shape we want. Now we just need to make a hole in this area and connect it. So I'll delete those vertices because we won't need them, but I will keep the bottom ones and the top ones. And I will also delete this one. That way we have some room to connect this part. Because if we look at the cross section, it will go up in the center. Now I'll delete, actually we may be able to use those. So before I delete them, I will slide those backwards, just like here. And then I will move those down to match the blueprint. Now you can slide this one right until it meets the center vertex on the thruster, and then we will fill this face here. And I will slide those just to make the curvature a bit smoother. Now we don't want to deform our circle too much, so we'll need to be careful about how we do this. Now make sure auto merge is turned on. Actually, we won't even need it for now. I'll just connect those two vertices and then slide this one slightly lower, and then add loop cut here and move it carefully on the X and Z axis just to restore the circular shape. Then we'll fill this circle here, this face, sorry. Add loop cut to match this area, and then slide it just to space them up a little bit more. Actually, we can even dissolve this edge loop. Okay, after doing a backup, I will go in edit mode and delete this face on top. We're ready to work on this top part of the thrusters. Now I'll select the two corner vertex, slide them here, and then selecting all three vertices, I will extrude them on the y-axis and scale them up a little bit. This will serve to create this protective loop around the thruster. Now you can see that we're too low, and so I will move those up just so they're about at the level of the wing. Actually, let's delete the vertices we just created, and instead I want to flatten those beforehand. So I will almost make them flat. I mean, this is pretty flat. And then I will extrude them on the y-axis and scale them up just like we did before. And this loop will serve, like I said, kind of as a protective layer. That way we can tighten it more or less depending on the sharpness that we want. Now I'll select the vertices on the tail here and extrude them. Actually, let's just move them first and extrude them afterwards. I'll just delete this vertex here, and then I will scale it on the z-axis, just like that. Make sure your pivot is set to active element and that you select the vertex at the bottom last. I will also extrude them a few times, keeping it simple and rotating each time on the x-axis. Now I will slide this one here. Actually, let's select the face and move it instead, because I want the whole tail to go and become thinner. So just like that, I will slide everything like so, making sure to make it gradually. And I will delete the vertices that we used for the curve network, because we won't need them for now. So I'll delete this one as well. And you can see I'm keeping the bottom ones kind of as a guide. So selecting all the vertices with the one closer to the center at last. And we will extrude and rotate each time. And now we're going to make it larger instead of going thinner. And just like that. And we can delete the last vertices of our curve network. Perfect. This is looking pretty nice. Okay, now let's continue this area a bit more. To do this, we will select the bottom vertices, make them go even larger than before. And extrude them to create this shape here. Now you can always refer to the cross section to get an idea of how this part should look, because if you recall, if you remember, we have all of those details in our blueprints. Now if you're using what I call the new blueprints in this version, in the folder, you will not find the cross sections. You will need to refer to the old one. I will also delete the vertices in the center of our thruster. That way it will be easier for us to connect them to the rest of the fuselage on this side. Okay, I now think we should take a small break from this area, and we should continue the fuselage under the wings and finish connecting the wings to the body before we connect the thrusters. To do that, we'll add as many edge loops as we have on our wing, like this, making sure they align pretty well. And I will slide them just a bit outward to match the blueprint. I will add a loop cut here and fill in those areas. Same for the back, add loop cut here. Just make sure to not connect it to the thruster area yet. I will add a horizontal loop cut and move the last vertex on the x-axis. And selecting the thruster vertices, I will rotate them on the z-axis, kind of to make the side a bit flatter. So we want to make our fuselage go more circular to match the thruster, but we will also want to make our thruster flatter. That way we don't have just a big bulge like this. I will add another horizontal loop cut right under the wing and move it on the x-axis, only the last vertex. I will select all of this loop and slide it just a little bit to make the curve smoother. Now I will add a loop cut on the top of the wing, right here, and one on top of the fuselage, right down the middle, and slide it a bit closer. Actually, let's just start with the middle. So I will connect the middle vertex to the middle vertex of the thruster, add loop cut on the dorsal spine, and then add another one right here and fill in those two faces. So this part should be pretty flat and then starts going up right when the thruster starts. I'll make a quick backup and move it to the backup collection, and then we can continue. Okay, now let's continue this lower area here. So in edit mode, I will make these vertices a bit wider. And then in side view, I will select the last vertices, move them down just a little bit to match the line that we have on the blueprint. Do the same for those, just a little bit. And now we will need to refer to the cross section on the blueprint. If you don't have them, it's okay. You can either just download the image from the link in the description, or you can just watch here what I'm gonna do. So we can see that the curve starts at this letter, at letter H. And so we know that between the letter H and the one right before, the curve disappears. So I will extrude it right here and delete that vertex. And slide this one just a little bit to make it easier when we connect them later. I will also scale this up and scale this down just to make it smoother. You may not need to do it depending on what yours look like. I will add one loop cut here to match the one on the thruster. Slide this one here to match the thruster a bit better. Okay, let's now fill this area. So I'll add one loop cut at the bottom to match the number that we have on top. Slide this one closer to the back and fill this face here. Then add a horizontal loop cut and fill those two faces, just like that. Now we have something that looks pretty clean, but still not quite like the reference images. Okay, now I will select those two faces and we need to make the tail wider. So we'll move them on the x-axis, just like this. Just a little bit more until they meet the thruster, basically. Then I will scale this one on the x-axis, just like this. Actually, just let's scale it a bit less. Now this parts need to be widened to match the back and have a smoother transition. I'll do the same here and the same over there. Always making sure that my pivot point is on active element and that I select the vertex on the mirror axis last. Now when we work between the thruster and the tail, it will become pretty hard for you to follow. So stay attentive and I'll try to go a bit slower than usual. So here I will select this vertex and delete it. It's the one right at the end in the middle here. And now I will select those two vertices. Right there, and merge them, selecting the one on the tail last. Okay, next up, select this face here and delete it, add a loop cut on this one and slide it upward just a little bit, and this will create this triangle shape that we will need to create this merge. So I'll select the last one here and this one here, and I will add two loop cuts in between to fill it just like that. For now, pretty simple. Now let's move this center line up a little bit because it was bothering me for quite a while now. Now I'll select those and move them up just a bit. And you can see that the dorsal fin is pretty wobbly, so we will need to fix that. We can fix this dorsal area later on when we're sure that we will not add any more loop cuts or edit this area anymore. Now I'll select those two vertices, that's the one on the thruster and the one on the wing, and merge them at last and fill in this face right here. Now I will delete this vertex on the thruster, add a loop cut on top of the wing, just to create this new face right here. I will slide this one here just to make the spacing a bit more even. And you can see that whenever I'm unsure about a part of the plane, I'm switching to another one, just to kind of let my brain think in the background and give me some more time to think about it without slowing down the progress. Now here I created the face between the thruster and the tail, like this. And I'm sliding this vertex upward, just to kind of create this diagonal and continue this triangular shape that we have. Now here the issue is, how do we integrate our loop that follows the thruster around this area? We can try to just create two faces, but I'm not quite sure about the look. It doesn't seem very good, very fitting. So I'll delete the faces we created. So I took a few minutes to think about it, and here what we're gonna do. So we'll select the edges on the tail right here, the one just before the triangle, and then extrude it on the x-axis, because we want this to be pretty much flat. And then I will lower it down just a tad. And then what I'm gonna do is select this vertex and maybe delete those two before. I'm trying to check if we can merge it at last, or if this is going to deform the surfaces too much. For now, let's move on to the back. So I'll slide this one up a little bit, delete this face because we will need to tweak this area a bit, and extrude this edge because you can see that the tail has two small rudders, kind of. So I'll move this one down to match the face that we created just before and fill in this area. Now, selecting all of those edges, I will slide them inward just a small bit. Add loop cut right here and create two faces to kind of continue this loop that we had, and then merge at last. Actually, let's merge. Sorry, I just needed to add it back to my quick favorite, but yeah, you can just merge at last. And here I will slide this just a bit, and before adding a loop cut, I want to check if this is really the right solution, the right direction that we're going in. For now, let's leave this area alone and move to the back here. So I'll select all of the vertices that were here, move them down just a bit, extrude them once, and then delete that vertex. Extrude those vertices once again, and one last time, to match the number that we have on the tail. I will slide this one out, slide these in, slide this one in as well, just to make it less prominent. And move it on the y-axis just to make the tip a bit more rounded. I will slide this one here, slide this one inward as well. And at this point it's pretty much a question of intuition, what looks best, because the references are quite blurry if you are modeling the same plane as me, and you kind of need to just guess at this point. So I will extrude those vertices again, right here, and you can see that we're starting to kind of hit the thruster end. I'll just edit the tail a little bit more, and then we are ready to fill in all around this place. Now you can see I forgot to add one loop, so I'm gonna do that and move it on the y-axis and fill in this area here. And now you can see that the face has an angle, which I'm not sure is a good thing. And to fix that, I will move these on the x-axis. That way it's a bit flatter, it has less of an angle. And like I said, at some point we're going to fix this dorsal area just to make it nicer. But yeah, you can see that we're starting to have a pretty good shape of the body. and the hardest area is pretty much done. I will add a loop cut here on the thruster and move it on the x-axis to restore the shape of our circle. And we will slide this one down, and then the new vertex that we created, I will merge it at last with these to kind of have another triangle that we can create. Now I will delete those two vertices, the ones just below. Also, what we're gonna do is delete this face, this edge, sorry, just to widen this triangle and give us a bit more freedom. I will add one loop cut on this dorsal area and match it with the thruster. We'll slide this inward just to give us a bit more space to work with. And now this vertex and this vertex to create a triangle. I also added a vertex here if you didn't have one. Then I will connect those two, add a loop cut, and fill in this area and see how it looks. Maybe it will be pretty bad, we will see. So it's not too bad, to be honest, it's pretty good. But you can see that we have this weird dent as well, created by this triangle. So we may need to redirect some things. So I'll slide this just to kind of try to smooth it out, see if it's the issue or if it's really just the topology. I will slide this one here to make it a bit smoother. And it's already a bit better, but it's not optimal. So let's delete those two faces and I'll show you how we can work around those. So I'll delete this one and these faces. Sorry, not these, but I'll inset those faces. And you can press B to not have any faces on the border. Now I'll slide these just like this. And now we created this loop that might not be needed in some case. So to fix that, we're going to widen it just here and make it tighter over there. Now I will connect those two faces because those are pretty easily we know that these will be connected. So we have no doubt here. Now I will delete this face here and add a loop cut there. Why I delete this face? It's so I can have more control over the loop that we're going to need to add. And when we add a loop, it's not just going to run across the whole length of the plane. So I will fill these faces and move these on the y-axis just to kind of restore the shape that we lost. I will delete this edge, sorry. And then we can connect this area here. So I will add a loop cut there. And then we can fill this face here. And we can fill those two as well. This is pretty good, and you could even slide some loops to kind of restore this circular shape that we lost. I didn't do a very good job here of restoring it. Now I'm gonna try to get that shape back. So in top view, I'll just select those vertices and move them just to kind of make it a bit more equal. Then I will select this vertex and all of these and slide them just to make it a bit more even and smoother of a transition. And then I will move those on the x-axis, just to kind of recreate this shape that we had. And if you like the shape of yours, you can continue, but for me, it needs a bit more tweaking. Now I'll select this vertex and move it on the x-axis again. And then select this one. And those two I will move on the y-axis to kind of get a bit more of a circular bend. Just like that. This is pretty good, I must say. It's not perfect for now, but it's good enough. I'll just keep doing a few more tweaks, and I encourage you to do the same. Try to see how much you can push this. And for today, that will be it, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!